All rise. Veuillez vous lever. Please be seated.
Mr. Ivedic, you're on your feet. Before I give you an opportunity to say something, I'd first like to explain that the break took slightly longer because doctor's advice has been obtained, and I take it will be reported. Anything?
Yes, Your Honors, I would like to place on the record information that I believe was provided to you, that Mr. Mladic's blood pressure was read 3 times during the break. The first reading, I believe, is 175/96. The second reading done by a nurse was 180/80. And after a 15-minute break, a second reading done by a nurse was 180/80. According to both the American Heart Association and the United Kingdom Cardiovascular Association, that is called hypertensive crisis and says consult doctor immediately. Under those circumstances, the defense asks that Your Honors either halt these proceedings or we waive reading of the summary and pronounce your judgment so that we can lessen the risk of further harm to Mr. Mladic's health given this extremely delicate situation with his blood pressure that we already have a medical opinion states could lead to a fatal condition for him. We have to emphasize that twice the reading was confirmed at 180/80, which, if you could look on the internet, this is in the red area, that's right there, the very top end of the crisis area, according to the United Kingdom and the American Heart Associations. Thank you, Your Honors.
The chamber will not rely on the internet, but rather rely on doctor's advice. Apart from that, Mr. Ivedic, our information was that the last reading, above it was 170, not 180. That's the information we received.
Your Honor's counsel is in the room at the time when it was taken.
Okay,
There
we'll,
were
not,
two that were
we'll
done.
not further discuss that.
Okay.
Your second request was to deliver the judgment right away without further reading any of the reasons. I'll have to discuss this with my colleagues, and the first thing I'll ask them is whether we can immediately decide this here, being in the courtroom, or whether we take another short break for that.
Understood, Your Honors.
Mr. Ivedic, the chamber has decided that we'll continue to read the judgment as we intended to do. The doctor's advice we got is that the situation is not such that medical reasons would prevent us from continuing.
Your Honors, and the defense would ask that this medical advice be put in writing, signed, and made part of the record.
Mr. Ivedic, I have given a decision. I'll now continue to read the judgment. Mr. Mladic wants to consult with counsel, I take it. If he does it in such a way that no one can hear your voice, Mr. Mladic, and sit down, please. Mr. Mladic, sit. Mr. Mladic, sit. Mr. Mladic, if you continue like this, we adjourn. Mr. Mladic will be removed from the courtroom. Curtains down. Yes, Mr. Mladic we adjourn. Curtains down. Mr. Mladic will be removed from the courtroom.
That's how healthy he is.
continue.
Lift them up. Let's
Yes.
Immediately continue.
We'll immediately continue.
no, let's continue. No. And if it is, we must cut him short.
Yes, it was a very short adjournment. Mr. Mladic has been removed from the courtroom and has been taken to a room where there's a couch to sit on, and where he's able to follow the proceedings on a screen. Mr. Ivitic.
Your Honors, we would ask that again his blood pressure be measured because
Mr. Ivitic, Mr. Mladic is out of the courtroom at this moment. The registry will take care of his, is responsible for his medical care. I do understand that a doctor and a nurse are nearby to meet any need in that respect.
And Your Honors, then I have to state on the record, I've talked with the doctor who is who is outside there, and he assured me that this blood pressure was normal. I asked him under what standard he refused to answer me.
Mr. Ivitic, this is not the moment to further discuss this matter. It is about the medical care for Mr. Mladic under the responsibility of the registry. The chamber has received information which made it proceed as it did, and will now proceed to read the judgment. And by the way, it comes to issues which I would normally expect to be dealt with by lead counsel. But Mr. Lukic, I take it that you're aware of your role and your function as lead counsel in this case. I'll now proceed.
Do you want me to respond, or you just
No.
notes?
I just reminded you of your position. Then I'll now continue to read the judgment, knowing that Mr. Mladic has an opportunity to follow the proceedings, video and audio on a screen. I resume. The accused commanded and controlled VRS units and tasked some of them to cooperate with the MOOP. He was in direct contact with members of the leadership in Serbia and members of the General Staff of the Army of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia to ensure that the military needs of the VRS were met. The accused also addressed the Bosnian Serb Assembly during several of its sessions on issues surrounding the development of policies of the Bosnian Serb political leadership, and often suggested to Bosnian Serb politicians what position they should take during peace negotiations in order to achieve the strategic objectives as initially defined. The accused further placed severe restrictions on the delivery of humanitarian aid for the civilian population from 10 April 1994 onwards, by ordering all VRS units to immediately block all UNPROFOR and humanitarian organizations' activities in the territory of the Bosnian Serb Republic. Between September 1992 and at least March 1995, the accused introduced and maintained a controlled and centralized system of spreading propaganda related to Bosnian Croats and Bosnian Muslims. The accused also made deliberately the misleading statements to members of the media and the international community in relation to crimes committed. The accused's acts were so instrumental to the commission of the crimes that without them, the crimes would not have been committed as they were. In light of this, the Chamber found that through his actions, the accused significantly contributed to achieving the common objective of permanently removing Muslims and Croats from Serb-claimed territory in Bosnia and Herzegovina by committing the crimes of persecution, extermination, murder, deportation, and the inhumane act of forcible transfer. The Chamber considered the accused's significant contribution to the objective of the overarching joint criminal enterprise, as well as his statements, in particular his repeated use of derogatory references to Bosnian Muslims and Bosnian Croats, and his expressions of commitment to an ethnically homogeneous Bosnian Serb Republic, even in territories that previously had a large percentage of non-Serb inhabitants. It found that the accused was aware of and intended for the crimes of deportation, the inhumane act of forcible transfer, murder, extermination and persecution to be committed against Bosnian Muslims and Bosnian Croats. The Chamber found that the accused shared the intent to achieve the common objective of the overarching JCE and held this intent as early as the 12th of May 1992. Therefore, he was a member of the overarching JCE from 12 May 1992. The Chamber now turns to the Sarajevo Joint Criminal Enterprise. The Chamber found that between the 12th of May 1992 and November 1995, there existed a JCE with the primary purpose of spreading terror amongst the civilian population through a campaign of sniping and shelling. The objective of this JCE involved the commission of crimes of terror, unlawful attacks against civilians, and murder. The members of the Sarajevo Joint Criminal Enterprise were members of the Bosnian Serb military and political leadership and included Radovan Karadzic, Stanislav Galic, Dragomir Milosevic, Momcilo Krajisnik, Biljana Plavšić, and Nikola Koljevic. The charged crimes were all committed by units of the Sarajevo Romania Corps. The Chamber now turns to the accused's responsibility for the crimes which were found to have been committed in the Sarajevo component of the case. The Chamber considered the accused's acts and omissions during the existence of the Sarajevo Joint Criminal Enterprise in order to determine whether he significantly contributed to this joint criminal enterprise. The Chamber found that the accused was involved in the establishment of the Sarajevo Romania Corps and made personnel decisions concerning the SRK, commanded SRK units from 1992 to 1995 in various operations, procured military assistance from the army of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia during the siege, ordered the production and use of modified air bombs on Sarajevo, and participated in policy discussions between 1992 and 1995 with members of the Bosnian Serb government. In addition, the accused participated in the dissemination of anti-Muslim and anti-Croat propaganda and provided misleading information about crimes to representatives of the international community. The accused also frequently ordered the restriction of humanitarian aid to Sarajevo and failed to take adequate steps to prevent crimes or adequately investigate and punish the perpetrators of crimes, all of whom were under his effective control. The accused's acts were instrumental to the commission of the crimes in Sarajevo. Through his actions, the accused significantly contributed to achieving the objective of the Sarajevo Joint Criminal Enterprise by way of committing the crimes of terror, unlawful attacks against civilians, and murder. In determining whether the accused shared the intent to achieve the common objective of the Joint Criminal Enterprise, the Chamber considered the accused's statements and conduct throughout the indictment period. In particular, the Chamber considered that the accused personally directed the shelling of Sarajevo that took place on the 28th of May 1992, was involved in selecting targets and directed fire away from Serb-populated areas, and commanded the Sarajevo-Romania Corps and formulated and issued directives. Further, in the spring of 1995, the accused proposed that Sarajevo be bombarded with explicit disregard for the safety of civilians. And on 6 September 1995, the accused ordered the SRK command to cut utilities supplying Sarajevo, forcing the inhabitants of Sarajevo to go outside and be exposed to sniping and shelling. The Chamber found that the accused intended to establish and carry out a campaign of sniping and shelling against the civilian population of Sarajevo. Further, the Chamber found that the accused intended this campaign to spread terror among the civilian population of Sarajevo, and that he intended to perpetrate the crimes of terror, unlawful attacks on civilians, and murder. The Chamber found that the accused held this intention throughout the indictment period. As such, he was a member of the Sarajevo Joint Criminal Enterprise. With respect to the Srebrenica Joint Criminal Enterprise, the Chamber found that there existed a JCE with the primary purpose of eliminating the Bosnian Muslims in Srebrenica by killing the men and boys and forcibly removing the women, young children, and some elderly men. In the days immediately preceding the 11th of July 1995, the objective of the Srebrenica Joint Criminal Enterprise involved the commission of the crimes of persecution and the inhumane act of forcible transfer, which occurred after the VOS attacked the enclave with a view to emptying it. By the early morning of the 12th of July 1995, the crimes of genocide, extermination, and murder also became part of the means to achieve the objective prior to the first crime being committed. In this respect, Momir Nikolic, Svetozar Kozoric, and Vujadin Popovic discussed the killings and potential execution sites on the morning of the 12th of July 1995. And Tolomir first ordered that Batkovic camp be prepared for a large number of detainees. He then conveyed that this plan had been given up. The JCE existed until at least October 1995, when reburials in Zvornik and Bratunac municipalities took place. The members of the Srebrenica Joint Criminal Enterprise included Radovan Karadzic, Radislav Krstic, Vujadin Popovic, Zdravko Tolomir, Ljubomir Borovchanin, Svetozar Kozoric, Radivoje Milicic, Radoslav Jankovic, Ljubisha Beara, Milenko Jivanovic, Vinko Pandurovic, and Vidoje Blagojevic. The charged crimes, except for the ill treatment and killing near the town of Trnovo of 6 Bosnian Muslim men and boys, were committed by VRS or MUP units, all under the operational command of the Drina Corps or the main staff at the time. As such, JCE members used these units to commit the Srebrenica crimes in furtherance of the joint criminal enterprise. The Chamber now turns to the accused's responsibility in relation to the Srebrenica component of the case. In determining whether the accused significantly contributed to the Srebrenica joint criminal enterprise, the Chamber has considered the accused's acts and omissions during its existence. The accused, in particular, recommended the promotion of Krstic to replace Jivanovic as commander of the Drina Corps. This recommendation was implemented on the 13th of July 1995. Between at least the 11th of July and the 11th of October 1995, he issued several orders to VRS forces, including the Drina Corps, concerning the operation in and around Srebrenica. And on the 11th and 12th of July 1995, he gave orders to MUP commander Borovchanin and his units. Further, in July and August 1995, the accused provided misleading information about the crimes, and he failed to take adequate steps to prevent crimes or to adequately investigate or punish members of the VRS and other elements of the Serb forces under his effective control for such crimes. The principal perpetrators of the crimes forming part of the Srebrenica joint criminal enterprise were members of the VRS or the MUP. The accused commanded and controlled both VRS and MUP units during the Srebrenica operation and its aftermath. The accused's acts were so instrumental to the commission of the crimes that without them the crimes would not have been committed as they were. Therefore, the Chamber found that the accused significantly contributed to achieving the objective of the Srebrenica joint criminal enterprise by way of committing the crimes of genocide, persecution, extermination, murder, and the inhumane act of forcible transfer. In determining whether the accused shared the intent to achieve the common objective of the Srebrenica joint criminal enterprise, the Chamber considered his statements and conduct throughout the takeover of the enclave. These included, among other things, his role in the Hotel Fontana meetings on the 11th and the 12th of July 1995, and his presence at the meeting at the Bratunac Command Center on the 13th of July with VRS and MUP officers, during which the task of killing or liquidating Muslim males near Konjovic Polje was discussed. They also included his orders to separate the Bosnian Muslim men from the women, children and elderly in Potocari from the 12th of July 1995, and his presence during the gathering of Bosnian Muslims in Potocari on the 12th and the 13th of July 1995, and during the separation of Bosnian Muslim men. Finally, the Chamber considered the accused's denial of the crimes committed in Srebrenica, as well as the measures he took to provide misleading information and to prevent the media from knowing what was happening there. The Chamber has further considered the accused's presence at Novokasaba Football Stadium, and Sandici Meadow on the 13th of July 1995, where several thousand Bosnian Muslim males were detained, and his misleading assurances that they would be taken to Bratunac to be exchanged. The Chamber found that from at least 1994 and throughout July 1995, the accused made numerous statements expressing a need to take revenge on the Bosnian Muslims from Srebrenica, adding that they would have, and I quote, disappeared a long time ago, end of quote, had it not been for the involvement of the international community. He further stated on several occasions during the Hotel Fontana meetings that the Bosnian Muslims from Srebrenica could, and I quote again, live or vanish, end of quote, and, quote again, survive or disappear. Based on the foregoing, the Chamber found that the accused intended to eliminate the Bosnian Muslims in Srebrenica by killing the men and boys and forcibly removing the women, young children and some elderly men through the commission of the crimes of persecution, murder, extermination and the inhumane act of forcible transfer. The Chamber found that the only reasonable inference was that the accused intended to destroy the Bosnian Muslims in Srebrenica as a substantial part of the protected group of Muslims in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Accordingly, the Chamber found that the accused intended to carry out the objective of the Srebrenica Joint Criminal Enterprise through the commissions of the crime of genocide and was a member of the Srebrenica Joint Criminal Enterprise. With respect to the hostage-taking Joint Criminal Enterprise, the Chamber found that the JCE existed from around the 25th of May 1995, when NATO airstrikes against Bosnian Serb targets commenced, until approximately 24th of June 1995, when the last UN personnel were released. This JCE had the purpose of capturing UN personnel in various parts of Bosnia and Herzegovina and detaining them in strategic military locations to prevent NATO from launching further military airstrikes on Bosnian Serb military targets. The members of the hostage-taking Joint Criminal Enterprise were members of the VRS main staff, the VRS Corps commands, Radovan Karadzic and Nikola Kojevic. These members implemented the common objective themselves and used VRS personnel, including members of the military police, to implement the objective, the common objective. The Chamber considered that orders and their implementation, the reporting obligations by the members of the JCE, as well as their statements, established that the members of the JCE shared the intent to achieve the common criminal objective. The Chamber further found that the accused significantly contributed to the JCE's common objective. The accused was closely involved from around 25th of May 1995 and throughout every stage of the hostage-taking. He ordered VRS units to detain the UNPROFOR personnel and to place them at potential NATO airstrike targets. He also ordered the release of the detained UNPROFOR personnel and informed an UNPROFOR representative that such release was contingent on the cessation of airstrikes. The Chamber found that the accused's contributions to the hostage-taking Joint Criminal Enterprise were central to the implementation of the JCE's objective. Based on the accused statements and conduct throughout the hostage-taking incidents, the Chamber found that the accused intended the objective and the hostage-taking joint criminal enterprise to capture UN personnel and detain them in strategic military locations to prevent NATO from launching further airstrikes. The Chamber found that the accused statements, in particular with regard to the fate of UNPROFOR personnel, were tantamount to having issued threats to continue to detain or to kill UN personnel, and that these threats were meant to end the airstrikes. The Chamber found that the accused was a member of the hostage-taking JCE. Having summarized its findings, the Chamber will now give its verdict. For the reasons summarized during this hearing, having considered all of the facts, evidence, and arguments of the parties, as well as the statute and the rules, and based upon the factual and legal findings set out in detail in the written judgment, the Chamber finds Ratko Mladic not guilty of count 1, genocide, and guilty as a member of various joint criminal enterprises of the following counts. Count 2, genocide. Count 3, persecution, a crime against humanity. Count 4, extermination, a crime against humanity. Count 5, murder, a crime against humanity. Count 6, murder, a violation of the laws or customs of war. Count 7, deportation, a crime against humanity. Count 8, the inhumane act of forcible transfer, a crime against humanity. Count 9, terror, a violation of the laws or customs of war. Count 10, unlawful attacks on civilians, a violation of the laws or customs of war. And count 11, taking of hostages, a violation of the laws or customs of war. In determining the appropriate sentence to be imposed, the Chamber has taken into account the gravity of the crimes of which he has been found guilty. The crimes committed rank among the most heinous known to humankind and include genocide and extermination as a crime against humanity. As mitigating factors, the defense referred to various circumstances, including the benevolent treatment by Mr. Mladic of and assistance to some victims, his good character, and his diminished mental capacity, poor physical health, and advanced age. For the reasons set out in the judgment, the Chamber considers that most of the factors raised in mitigation by the defense carry little or no weight. For having committed these crimes, the Chamber sentences Mr. Ratko Mladic to life imprisonment. This concludes the delivery of the judgment. The Chamber stands adjourned. All rise. Veuillez vous lever.